Hello guys, this is 12th Harbinger and welcome to my channel. In this video, I am going to give you a complete build guide for Garming, including its talent explanation and priority, best combos, constellations, weapons, artifacts and team comps. Without any further ado, let's jump right into it. Starting with Garming's elemental skill. Garming charges forward and if he collides with an enemy or a surface like a wall, he jumps into the air which further allows him to use a special plunge attack. This plunge attack deals AoE pyro damage. Upon landing, Garming will consume 15% of its max HP when his HP is above 10%. These plunges have no ICD and generates a total of 2 elemental particles. The particle generation has a cooldown of 3 seconds. His elemental skill has a cooldown of 6 seconds. After using Garming's elemental burst, he will enter a state called Wushu stance and briefly apply pyro to himself, recovering 30% of his max HP and summoning his companion Swani Manchai. I hope I am pronouncing this name correctly. His companion will smash into an enemy and deal AoE pyro damage. His companion's damage has a very high multiplier of 629% at level 9. After bashing into an enemy, Garming's summon will roll towards a nearby location and start moving towards Garming. When it reaches Garming, it will reset his elemental skill CD. The Wushu stance lasts for 12 seconds and will increase his resistance to interruption. If Garming's HP is above 50% and he uses his special plunge attack, or hits an enemy with his elemental skill rush, he will summon his friend Manchai again. Only one friend can stay on field at a time. Garming's Ascension 1 passive Dance of Amity will restore 1.5% of his max HP after hitting an enemy with his special plunge attack, once every 0.2 seconds for 0.8 seconds. That is a total of 6% HP restoration within 0.8 seconds. This is an amazing passive which lets him easily get max stacks from the Malachase Hunter set by himself. Garming's Ascension 4 passive gives him 20% incoming healing bonus if his HP is below 50%, and if his HP is above 50%, his special plunge attack will deal 20% more damage. Due to his Ascension 4 passive and how his burst works, you need to keep him over 50% HP. Moving on to the combos. For Garming's main DPS combo, you can start with his burst, then use his skill and use the special plunge. By the time you use your plunge, the skill CD will reset and you can use his elemental skill plunge again. Or you can use his skill plunge, then use his burst and use his skill again. This will give you more energy particles, since his particle generation has a cooldown of 3 seconds.
After the opening combo, you can use normal attacks until his skill CD get reset again. Weaving in normal attacks also makes other supports like Yelan and Xingqiu usable with him, as he can benefit from their high off-field damage and Hydro application.
If you have Xianyun and don't have characters like Yelan or Xingqiu in your team that requires normal attacks, you can do plunge attacks instead of normal attacks till you get your next skill cast. Now for his talent priority. Garming's special plunge damage multiplier increases with his elemental skill levels. As a result, most of his damage comes from his elemental skill, so leveling it should be your first priority. After that, go for his burst as it has really high multipliers, followed by his normal attacks. Try to take the normal attacks to at least level 6 as you will be using them between your combos. However, with C6, Bennett level his normal attacks before his burst. Moving on to Garming's Constellations. For his first constellation, whenever Garming's summon returns back to him, it will heal 15% of his max HP. This is a quality of life upgrade allowing you to get more fanfare stacks if paired with Furina. However, I don't think this is needed as most of Garming's team wants Xianyun or Bennett who are great healers. His second constellation gives him 20% attack when he is overhealed. This is not much of an attack boost as there are various sources of getting attack buffs, which makes this buff only a minimal increase. His third constellation increases his elemental skill level by 3. This constellation is decent as it increases the main source of damage of Garming. It is around 8% damage increase, as a result it is not the constellation you should specifically aim for. Garming's C4 restores 2 energy to him when he hits an enemy with his special plunge attack. This reduces his energy requirements by about 20%, letting you build more offensive stats on him. His fifth constellation increases his burst level by 3, which is not that significant. Garming's C6 is busted. It increases his special plunge attack crit rate by 20% and crit damage by 40%, further increasing its attack radius, which gives him about 50% more AoE. This constellation gives a significant amount of damage increase due to the massive crit buffs, and the increased AoE also plays a huge role against multiple enemies. Overall, Garming's constellations are quite bad except the 6th constellation, which is a significant amount of increase. However, getting the C6 can cost a lot of fates, so I would recommend you to not pull for his banner, specifically for the constellations, as you might end up with unwanted 5 stars. Also, we can get Garming for free, so you can skip pulling on his banner. Moving on to his artifacts. There are quite a lot of artifacts that you can use on Garming, but the best one to use on him would be the 4-piece Malachase Hunter. He does not benefit much from the 2-piece set effect as his main damage focus are the plunge attacks. However, he can easily get the max stacks from the 4-piece effect as it does offer HP changes by consuming his own HP and then continuous small healing from his Sensation 1 passive, making it much easier to cap on the 4-piece Manage of the Hunter's effect. Other sets you can use are the 4-piece Vermilion hereafter as it provides a turn of attack. Crimson Witch is also a great option. Gilded Dreams can provide a lot of elemental mastery for buffing his whip or melt damage. You can also use the 4-piece Shiminawa set if you are planning to use him as quick swap DPS, where you only use his skill and plunge attack then swap to a different character. Lava Walker can be used for mono pyro or burning teams. Alternatively, you can use 2-piece mixed sets of attack percent, Crimson Witch, elemental mastery or emblem of severe fate. His artifact stats are quite straightforward: attack percent on stands, pyro damage bonus on goblet and crit on circlet. You can use elemental mastery stands in web teams if it has better substats. You can also opt for an energy recharge stance for meeting his energy requirements, but I recommend you to get it from his substats or from his weapon. His ER requirements highly depend on your teams, how many pyro characters you have in your team, for one users, D-Force, Moonlights, etc. For a general guideline, try to get around 135 to 150% energy recharge on him. Calming's burst is an important part of his kit. As a result, you need to make sure that you have enough energy recharge to keep his burst uptight. For his artifact substats, try to reach the required amount of ER. After that, for wave teams, you need to get around 200 elemental mastery on him. Elemental mastery buffs like Instructor, Sucrose, etc. should also be taken into consideration. Then aim for crit stats. Try to get around 70% plus crit rate. With Marichos a Hunter or his C6, this amount can get lower accordingly. Attack substats are also great. You will be pleased to know Gaming has many F2P weapon options. Few of them are event limited, however there is a savior for the late joiners. The R5 Mail Flower is an amazing option for Gaming for Vaporize and Mail teams. R5 Rain Slasher pulls ahead of the Mail Flower in Vaporize teams. Redhorn, Stone Thresher and Beacon of the Reed Sea serve as a great stat sticks. Even though Gaming cannot make full use of their passives, the raw stats still help to make these weapons one of its best options. From the calculations I have seen, Redhorn is generally his best in start, especially when paired with Bennett to make up for the lower base attack.
The Verdict is another great stat stick for the crit rate and high base attack.
R5 Serpent Spine is the best weapon for him as long as you are not taking any damage, but it is very costly and it is not recommended to spend so much for refining it for Gaming as you already have some great F2P weapon options. Serpent Spine is good only if you have a shielder in your team so that you can avoid taking damage. The free weapon of the patch 4.3, the R5 Ultimate Overlord's Mega Magic Sword, is an amazing F2P option as it provides energy recharge which can let you build more offensive stats on Gaming. The Wolf's Gravestone and the Unforged provide an abundance of attack percent, though the Unforged requires a shielder to activate its passive. If running Bennett, the value of attack percent can get somewhat diminished.
Skyward Pride can be used for the energy recharge, but I would prefer using Ultimate Overlord's Mega Magic Sword for both energy recharge and attack.
For craftable options, the Tidal Shadow is the one you should go for as it provides a shit ton of attack through its substats and passive which can be easily triggered by Gaming. And R5 it becomes a better option than the R1 WGS. Do keep in mind the weapon is highly influenced by your artifacts. If you have less ER, you might want to go for an ER weapon like the Medusin Claymore, and for lower EM, you can go for Mail Flower or Rain Slasher. There's two ways you can use Gaming. First is as a sole main DPS of your team with buffers and sub DPS or as a quick swap DPS. Gaming's elemental skill has a short cooldown of 6 seconds, so you can use his skill, swap him out to other characters, and swap back to Gaming again to use his skill and his burst if it is ready. For quick swap DPS Gaming, you don't need to focus on getting energy recharge as most of the time you will be using his skill and swapping him out. Now moving on to his team comps. Let's start with the characters that synergize well with Gaming. First off, you would have already guessed the character, the Queen for buffing plunge damage, Cloud Retainer or Xian Yun. She is the best support for him due to the insane amount of plunge damage buffs and also the healing which helps with sustainability and getting fanfare stacks easily if you have Furina in the team. Being an anemo, she can also use a very decent set. Next we have Furina. Furina provides high off-field damage and damage buffs to the whole team. Her Hydra application helps Gaming vaporize his attacks. Gaming offers HP changes by himself which makes him easier to get more fanfare stacks. Next we have Bennett, the best support in the game that can go in most of the teams. He provides healing, attack buffs, unlocks Pyro Resonance and can be the initial Pyro applier for swirling Pyro with your anemo character. And if your Bennett is C6, it will grant Gaming Pyro damage bonus and Pyro infusion to deal damage during his elemental skill downtime. Yelan also works as well with Gaming. Even though her burst attacks can't be triggered during the plunge attacks, You can weave in normal attacks in his combos as I mentioned earlier in the combo section to benefit from Yelan's high off-field damage and Hydro application. She can also provide up to 50% damage buff from her passive. Similar to Yelan, Xingqiu is a similar choice minus the damage buff. Kokomi is a 2-in-1 option for filling the healer role and a Hydro applier. Kazuha and other Anemo units like Sucrose, Lynette and Jean also synergize well with Gaming to provide him buffs and very decent state. Kazuha and Sucrose can also provide grouping, making it easier to hit the enemies with his plunges. Other sub DPS or buffers like Xiangling, Fischl, Kaya, Rosaria, Chevrus for overload teams, Yaimiko etc. also work with Gaming. Now finally, let's make his teams. First off, we have his wave teams. This team focuses on vaporizing Gaming's damage to get the maximum damage output from his attacks. In this team, you will need Hydro appliers for enabling vaporize and buffers to get the most damage output. Your team composition can look like Gaming, a buffer, Hydro character and Flex. For buffers, we have Shanyun, Bennett, Zhongli, etc. The Hydro characters we have Furina, Yelan, Xingqiu or Kokomi. Keeping the Hydro uptime on enemies using only Furina can be difficult with Anemo characters, so we recommend you to use her in double Hydro comp or you can just use Xingqiu. Some examples of his wave teams include Gaming, Bennett, Furina, Yelan, Gaming, Xianyun, Xingqiu, Bennett, Gaming, Xingqiu, Sucrose, Bennett. You could use Gaming with cryo supports for male teams. Since Gaming has low pyro application compared to other pyro carries, male teams can be viable with him. Here you will need to use cryo supports like Rosaria, Kaya, Layla, Diona, etc. Since there is a lack of good cryo supports with high off-field damage unlike the Hydro ones, the wave teams are still better. But the male ones are unique team that you can try if you get bored with the wave teams. Some examples of his male teams include Gaming, Bennett, Rosaria, Kaya,
Gaming, Diona, Kaya, Xianyun.
Now due to the addition of Chevrus, overload teams are also a great option, especially if your Chevrus is C6. However, the overload can knock back enemies, making it a bit annoying to use these teams,
But it can be used since Gaming can chase the enemies with his elemental skill.
Some examples of overload teams include Gaming, Fischl, Chevrus, Xiangling, Gaming, Fischl, Chevrus, Yaimiko. Beidou can also be used as an electro applicator if you use normal attacks in your rotations. Next up, we have the plain old mono pyro team. Here you can use pyro characters with an Anemo character, preferably Kazuha, to boost the pyro damage. Some team examples are Gaming, Xiangling, Bennett, Kazuha, Gaming, Deya, Xiangling, Lynette. Do keep in mind the examples mentioned in this video are just for giving you an idea on how to build your teams. You can be more creative with your teams. Overall, Gaming is a main DPS unit that has decent damage, and his ability to vaporize all his hits makes him an incredibly strong character. With his C6 unlocked, he becomes a beast and can deal extremely high damage, competing some of the best 5-star units. This is an incredible achievement for a 4-star unit, and the only character we have that is better than most of the 5-star DPS characters is Xiangling. I don't want to talk much about her, she is haunting me in every team right from the start of the game. Also, Gaming is a main DPS, as a result he lacks versatility unlike a certain 4-star pyro character. As a result, this doesn't make him a must pull or must build character, but is a decent hyper carry. If you really like him, you should invest your resources into him, and if you manage to get his C6, then definitely build him and don't let your Primogems go to waste.
How much would you rate Gaming out of 5?
Let me know in the comments. I hope this video was helpful. Don't forget to like and share the video and subscribe for more Genshin Impact content. That's all for this video. Thanks for watching.